From Microbe TV, this is Office Hours for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and you're listening to your viral corner of the internet where you can ask questions about viruses and talk about all kinds of things. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, our moderators. Let's see who's here tonight. We have Frank from New York. Thank you for joining us. We have Vanity Nutrition from New York. We have Les from California. We have Tom from Western Oregon. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Tell us where you're from. And of course, as everyone knows, and if you don't know, I will tell you, Dixon Despommier passed away last week. So let's get his office hours image up there. He died on February 7th. So, yeah, I'll miss Dixon. I knew him for a long time. He was at Columbia when I got there in 1982. And in 1990 something, was it that? No, 2008. I knew him over the years. We stayed in touch. Yeah. In 2008, I said, I have this idea for a podcast. I want to do a weekly virology podcast. And he said, oh, you mean This Week in Virology? I said, yeah, that's the idea. So he started it with me and it got it going. And then it grew and I brought other people in. But he stuck with it over the years. He hasn't done one in a while because he's been ill. But not too long ago, he did one. Last year, of course. And then I said, you should do a parasite podcast. And a year later, we started This Week in Parasitism. And so it was just Dixon and I for a while. And then Daniel Griffin came to Columbia, and we added him to the mix. And then Christina Naula. And he spent a lot of time on those two podcasts. Of course, he was here on Office Hours a couple of times. As you may all remember, that was one of the thumbnail images from his visit. And he was always... So Dixon was a very interesting guy. He knew a lot. He was a great storyteller. He was very kind, very inquisitive, and willing to help all the time. So that kind of person is hard to replace. So I'm really sad that he won't be on our programs anymore because I think he added a lot. Really curious guy. So unfortunately, I went to see him about 2 weeks ago, and he's in the ICU. He was unconscious, so he couldn't talk to me. But I went up to his ear and I said, Dixon, it's time to podcast. Maybe he heard me in his unconscious state. But yeah, R.I.P. Dixon. It's really too bad. Okay, tell us where you're from, folks. I know that many of you are sad to hear of Dixon's passing. And we can go through some of your tributes. We also have a mini lecture tonight. Will is from Changsha, 5 degrees and cloudy. 5 degrees and cloudy. Yeah, a lot of people are upset about Dixon. He's 84. Yeah, born in 1940, as I showed you on that graphic. 84 years old. Abdur Rahman is from Brooklyn. Welcome, Abdur. Tom is from Western Oregon, as we say. Dagfin is in Oslo for -5. Chile. Yes, Dixon has a Wikipedia page. And the picture there I took in the subway one time. That's it. John is in Minneapolis, minus 15 C. Pretty chilly. Rainy is in eastern North Carolina. Yeah, also, I forgot to say that Dixon and I started Urban Agriculture. And that went about 30 episodes. And Dixon said, I can't get guests. No, I get guests for most of the other shows. Well, for TWIV for sure, but some of the other shows. I couldn't get guests for urban agriculture. It's not my field. It was up to Dixon. And this is one of Dixon's things. You know, he said, I can't get guests. But he didn't really try hard enough. So we canned it. It's the 30 episodes are there, and that's it. So he participated in TWIV, TWIP, and urban agriculture, and Livestream. I also did an interview with him not too long ago, which is very interesting. For on the occasion of the publication of his latest book on the City 2.0, I think. What it was, yeah. Margot is in New York City. I'm sorry I couldn't catch up with you, Margot. Today was completely booked, and tomorrow and Friday I will be in Princeton. So next time, okay? I could have. I don't even know when you showed up. If you showed up Wednesday, no, Wednesday was all booked. Dean is in Wisconsin, 11F. Kang is in Chicago, -3 with 2 inches of snow, more on the way. Carol Wong, our favorite nephrologist from Key West, Florida. Oh, you must be on vacation because normally you're in California. Enjoy it. Yeah, 76F. Jonathan is in Encinitas, California, 12 degrees C. Maureen is in Northeast Ohio. Hey, Alina, Coxsackie, New York. I got your microscope sitting right here next to me. I talked about you to my virology class last week. I said, we have a listener from Coxsackie, New York. How cool is that? Jessica from University of Toledo, 23F and snowing. MN is outside of DC. Truman is in Fort Worth, Texas, 2 degrees C and falling. The temperature is falling. Cheryl is in Santa Rosa, California. Pete is in London, flying to Seville. Rip de Camp is in Taos, 1 degree. Rita is sailing the beautiful Sea of Sagebrush in the northern Great Basin, southwest Idaho. Jan is in Tucson. Lise is in Columbus, Ohio. Julie is in snowy north central Pennsylvania. Uba Luby is in Little Rock. Laura is in Washington, Pennsylvania. Light snow. Lagotic, -3 in Chicago. Artemis in Montreal, -13 C. I'm skipping the Dixon comments because I want to do them all together. At least some of them, okay? You believe he heard me? Maybe. Yeah, well, his wife said, why don't you go by his ear and whisper? So I took his hand and I whispered. I talked in his ear. I didn't whisper. I said, Dixon, it's time to do a podcast. And, he was intubated and really out of it. So, but maybe in his subconscious he heard me. But he didn't stir. He didn't stir or move. He's like, do it without me. Krishnan is in Malaysia. Patricia's in Massachusetts. Mark is in Tacoma, 20C. Yeah, you'll visit. We got it on the calendar. On the calendar. Other shade is in Amsterdam. Michael Schmidt, not Chamber of Commerce weather here. Have fog, but thankfully the snow is gone. So it was a question from Michael that we had last week. I don't remember. Or 2 weeks ago. Satawi is in Thailand. Fishbone is in Connecticut. Jeff is in Elgin. Bit of snow. Yeah, I know you want to visit, but I'm not going to be in New York Thursday and Friday. I'm at Princeton for a book meeting, and I suspect you're leaving on the weekend. I'm sorry. Joseph is in Ontario. EHS is in Pennsylvania. Arizona, icy rain in 3C here in Asheville. Cheryl is in southern Ontario, -8, looking for snow. Is the new city, you think? Maybe. Yeah, it was New City. You're right. I think City 2.0 was an early title, but they didn't do it. Yeah, you're right. Hat is in LA, 52F. Environmental. Yep, southern tier of New York. The new city, right. Silent Runner is in Wichita. A lot of snow. Hello, Steph, our mod. Welcome and thank you for coming. Next time when it's not too cold. Yeah, it's bloody cold here. Yeah, it's really, I hate it. I really hate it. FSM says it's cold in Wales. No snow, though. Rad is in Toronto in a snowstorm. Bad Cat is in Winthrop, Maine, 17F and cloudy. Yeah, it's funny. George is upstate New York. Bernard is in D.C. Hello, Simon. San Jose. It's cold. Do you know the way to San Jose? And Jem is from Hampton, Virginia. Let's go back to the top and look for some Dixon tributes, right? So, MN condolences. Patricia, so sad. He was truly a smart, kind man. Sorry to all the TWIP gang, right? Dagfin, deeply and profoundly devastated to hear of Dixon's passing. Please allow me to set forth my most sincere condolences. May he rest in peace. Sad to hear about Dixon. I'm so heartbroken to hear of the passing of Dr. Despommier. What a beautiful legacy he has left behind for us to continue learning from and loving. Yeah, so the silver lining, we got a lot of recordings of Dixon, and he can both audio only and a lot of video too. So I would like to make a reel, right? A summary reel. But that's a lot of work. But I'd like to do it. I would like to do it. Rach, sorry to hear. Cuddy Sark, condolences. Patricia, I'm sorry. Frank liked hearing his voice. Yeah, he had a good voice. Rainey, sorry to hear of Dr. D's passing. This is Just finished the last episode of Urban Ag. Then heard the sad news. R.I.P. The angels will be nice to you. Other shade I will still learn from all he wrote and published. So good. Some people are very hard to forget. Thank you very much, Dr. D. That says it all right there, right? Rita, Dixon, I'm gutted. His TWIP presentation on trichinella knocked my socks off. Hat, deeply saddened at the passing of Professor Despommier, one of the TWIV students. I would like to express my affection, deep respect, and thanks to all of the TWIV profs. Sad news indeed about Dixon. Vanity, I'm so sorry to hear about Dixon. He was such a charming man. I really enjoyed hearing him talk about interviewing Columbia's med school candidates and asking them what they do for fun. Deepest condolences. Costello's just going to keep saying no because no. Tona, saddened by the news of Dixon, Vincent has special relationships with all the co-hosts. The one with Dr. D was one of utmost respect and friendship. Margot, so sad. I really liked him. Saddened to hear about Dixon's passing. Hans, I'm devastated by Professor Despommier's passing. He'll be missed. I'm heartbroken. Sorry to hear Dixon passed away. I will miss his wonderful insights and humorous quips. Rip, Dixon Despommier, thank you for a life well lived. Until next time, Dixon. Rest in peace. From H. Sue. Or requiescat in pace, if you want to do the Latin. R.I.P. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Appreciate it. So sorry about Dixon. Costello, I'm mad. I didn't get to buy his book yet. Well, you could still buy it. The New City. Do I have it here? No, I have it in the incubator. I do have autographed copy. Yeah. Carol, I'm so sad to hear of Dixon's passing. I enjoyed learning about parasites and the environment. He will be missed. Yep. Elena, we loved him so much. Tell his family his internet fame is mourning his loss. What a great life he lived and what a boon to the science community in general. So curious to the end. John writes, I highly recommend TWIP and the supplemental video course on parasites with Dixon and Daniel. So the first 20 so episodes of TWIP, each episode was on a different parasite, trichinella, schistosomiasis, whipworm, etc. And then that's when Daniel joined after about 20 some episodes, and we started to do cases and papers. Yeah, Dixon did his top musicians countdown on TWIV. That was really great. I'm guessing that was 2023, not last year. Yeah, that was good. Hi, Elaine. I'm really upset. So much more that crazy-ass brain could have done. Yes, condolences from Thailand. I'm sad. I was looking forward to hearing his voice again. Think about him on every tweet podcast, wanting to hear his voice in Minnesota. Oh, my Vincent, so sad. Felt like he was a friend through Microbe TV. For sure. Absolutely. Dixon knew so much about the climate and the change that's going on. He was so knowledgeable. I literally feel terrible. Sometimes I tune in and don't chat at all, but here I am. Hello. Uba Luby was 8 when your podcast started with Dr. D. I wonder what would have happened if I knew about it back then. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, this one. Remember during the pandemic when the refrain, "Be nice to Dixon," emerged? So there was an episode where he said something it was just so wrong. So I yelled at him, and everybody got really upset. And they said, "Vincent, you got to apologize." So the next episode, I apologized to him. But then this mantra or refrain, "Be nice to Dixon," kept going. It had a life of its own. It went on for a long time, and it's periodically emerged. And once in my virology class, a student in the third row holds up a sign during class, "Be nice to Dixon." So, you got students who are listening. Oh, that's so funny, isn't it? Be nice to Dixon. What's the other antiviral that Dr. Griffin recommends? Baloxavir marboxil, right? Not that's the endonuclease inhibitor. So zanamivir and peramivir, those are the neuraminidase inhibitors. Baloxavir marboxil is the endonuclease inhibitor, and it works better than Tamiflu, apparently. Yep. Yes, Dixon was a fly fisherman who did humane catch and release. I imagine fish tell each other stories of their alien abductions. I have to say, a couple of years ago, we were invited to do a TWIV at Rocky Mountain Labs in Hamilton, Montana. And so we did. But then Dixon said, "I want to take you on a float on the Bitterroot River." I said, "Okay, what is this float?" Anyway, so we got up one morning. He had rented a guy with a boat. And I sat in the back and he fished. Oh, man, he was just pulling them in like crazy. He put them all back. He would kiss them and put it back. And I actually took video of the whole trip, which I really should edit and put up at some point because it was really good. He wanted to see it. I never showed it to him, Vincent, but I will do that. And you can see my gosh, he was just pulling them in one after the other. He learned a lot too. Like he said, you see these moths coming out of the forest and landing on the water, and the fish eat them. He said, "That's what I have on my line today, those kind of moths." Very cool. Very cool. So Renatus writes, "A brilliant and artistic man who brought the most unique and rich flavor of humor, expertise, edgy wordplay, and razor-sharp inquisitiveness to Microbe TV's podcast. I will miss Dixon Despommier." That's very well written, Renatus. It summarizes him beautifully. Razor-sharp inquisitiveness. Always had a good question, right? And if he didn't, you could say, "Dixon, what do you think?" And he would launch into it. The "Be Nice to Dixon" era. A man for all seasons. John writes, "Maybe I'm reaching for a silver lining, but from Dixon's perspective, RFK Jr. never became Secretary of HHS." Yeah, unfortunately he will. And it's just unconscionable that this party will confirm this guy who's a liar and doesn't know any science. I'm just stunned. Yeah, people say, "Vincent, get over it. This is the new world we're in." But I don't want to contaminate Dixon's tribute here. I also love the Dixon and knew about birdiful farming, which I had taken up a couple years ago outside with my green stalk gardening. Marie Boutin, truly sorry, Vincent. Dixon came on this show a couple of times. Here's the link for one. I think he came on a couple of times. Always good. Always a lot of fun. In fact, I could tell you when he last came on because that image that I showed, right, this one right here. Where is it? There, that one. That was the thumbnail of his last episode. So let me take a look. We'll go to office hours documents, and we'll tell you exactly when he last came on. Yeah, I say that, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. So here's an office hours thumb, Dixon Despommier, December 26, 2023. I find it hard to believe that he wasn't on it in 24. Yeah, I'm just not finding the right thumbnail. It's not even the right one. I don't think it's the one I'm showing you. All right. We won't waste any time. No. Yeah, he was in it in 2024, that's for sure. TG. Yeah, I need a better filing system for all the YouTube thumbnails. Sorry about that. Dixon Despommier. Costella's brain is broken. Elena, I think parasites are bloody disgusting to hear about, but man, where am I going to get my trusted content from? I don't know. George is in Roscoe, New York. Welcome. I know Roscoe. When I used to drive to Cornell, Ithaca, I used to go past Roscoe. Carlos. Professor Dixon's legacy is enormous. Rip from San Juan, Puerto Rico, 75 degrees. Jem, oh no, we will miss Dixon. Farewell, Dixon. An incredible life, well lived, and a gift to us all. Yeah, it was a gift to all of us. Really a twiv end of an era. Yeah, so the spelling is Dickson. Some of you are misspelling it, but I'm not about to correct you when you're giving condolences. Sorry to hear about Dixon. At least he enjoyed himself. Yeah, he had a good life. He would not say that he didn't enjoy his life. In fact, just a few months ago, he was in Egypt for a couple of weeks. Okay? Just recently. So towards, I'm not sure, maybe November of 2024. He didn't show up on Twiv for the longest time, or TWIP, and he didn't tell us. That was a typical Dixon thing. He just wouldn't show up. It turned out he was in Egypt. Okay, he called me. He says, I'm in Egypt. I was in Egypt. Dixon always had a story to share. Yeah. The podcast won't be the same. That's right. I'm going to miss the funny old guy tangents. You know, we toyed around with making a little chat show, but just the two of us. Should have. Even if it went for a year, it would have been fun. Dixon's side stories on the podcast were always a joy. Remember when Dixon would doze off? Oh, yeah. Dixon dozed off a lot. I couldn't figure out how to get him up, wake him up. I had sent a little photo of Chinook salmon on our property with my donation. Hoped he would get it. I'm not sure he did. No. Rich, sorry about Dixon. One of the good guys. Just think, Dixon will be with all the jazz giants: Coltrane, Lee, Morgan, Miles. Markle, so sorry to hear about Dixon. I really enjoyed listening to him, and I respected the ideas in his books. Oh, Gary, thank you. I edited the Wikipedia page. They had no mention of TWIP. I appreciate it. I went to see yesterday, and someone had already put his passing date in. So I said, oh, I wonder who's editing this. And I noticed they just had TWIV, and I said, I got to go back and do this. But thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. That's really nice. Sorry to hear about Dixon's passing. His stories were always full of fun. I hope someone from his family is able to see all of this. This is wonderful, right? This tribute. Why is there no New York Times obituary? I don't know. There might be. The Columbia Press Room might push that forward. We'll see. Usually it takes a while for them to come out. I mean, for some people, they come out right away. Yeah. Maybe your editor could do a best of Dixon. Yeah, my editor is too expensive. But Michael Schmidt, folks might wish to crowdsource their favorite Dixonisms. If we had a spreadsheet, you could put in your episode and timestamp, because you guys could say, "Oh, I know this one." That would be great. That would be great. H2 wants to know how Amy is doing. So I can't talk about how Amy is doing. But as you write, there's a lot of craziness going on in the government, right? Yeah, it's too bad people can be eulogized while they're still around. Can't be, to hear all the wonderful comments, yeah. Yes, Dixon had a fondness for classic science fiction and jazz. Jazz for sure, yeah. Eliza is in southern Ontario where it's snowing. EHS talent had so much knowledge. I miss him. File 1271. I first saw her Dixon in a microbe TV broadcast in October 23 and was a fan of his manner and humor and even his headset, which led me to get a similar red corded one. Loved him on TWIV 1143 group talk. Someone go look at the last TWIV he was on, please. And you can, and we'll put it in the chat here. That would be great. Maybe you can share some of his top picks that he offered recently. He did a lot of photography picks, right? Yeah. Gail from North Carolina. Glad I got to experience Dixon when listening to TWIV, especially during the pandemic. What's my favorite Dixon story? Oh my gosh. I'd have to think about that. I don't know. I mean, I did really enjoy fishing with him because I'd never done that kind of fishing, fly fishing, right? And just to see his skills was really amazing. And I have to say that after we did that float, so the guy drives you back to your hotel, and we sat by this lake behind the hotel with a bottle of single malt, I think, until the mosquitoes came out and we had to go inside the lobby. But he was explaining the ecology of the lake, right? Oligotrophic lakes and all this stuff and what's happening in the water. And I loved it. I loved listening to him. I mean, it's not my favorite story, but those kind of things I liked. I'll have to think about it. It's a good question. Costello was thinking at least he won't have to watch the S show we're entering into. Didn't know if it was appropriate to say, but all of a sudden it seems so much worse going on without his input. What makes us feel sad is that Dixon was with us through such a difficult time during COVID, and he always put a smile on, at least on my face. Helene, he got out at just the right time. I don't know. I think he would have liked to stick around longer. Angry. Sorry to hear about Dixon. Now I'll never know how people get eyelash mites. What were the names of the podcasts you were throwing around? No, it wasn't Deep Thoughts. I don't remember. You know, we had a click and clack type of vibe in mind. I wanted something like what is it? Q&A with VD. Right? Q&A with Vincent and Dixon, but with the VDs, venereal diseases, right? That was the one I thought. Best of Dixon. We could make a video, Best of Dixon, for sure. It'll take a while to put together. But if you guys want, I can put a link to a Google Doc, and you can put in your episode number and timestamps. So I will do that. The best of Dixon. So Dixon Donald Despommier was his full name. He never wanted you to know that his middle name was Donald, for obvious reasons. Dr. R, my dad was at Cornell around the time as you. He was class of 76. Wonder if your paths ever crossed. I was class of 74. It's possible. You could send me his name. I do have. So the freshmen all got what's called a pig book, which had pictures of all the freshmen. But that would be a different class from him. Yeah. Marianne, sorry to hear about Dixon. I will miss listening to him. Twiv 1109, a protein flew in and a bat flew in. That was his last episode. He might have come up with that title. I don't remember. Yeah. And there, I don't know what that is. That's 1143. What's that? Sick Transit Gloria Dixon. Yep. Gene Shepard used to say that. Sick Transit Gloria Mundi. Which means, thus passes the glory of the world. Thus passes the glory of Dixon. Nice. I haven't heard Sick Transit in a while. I like it. There was a takeoff on it. Sick Transit Gloria Mundi. Gloria got sick on the train on Monday. And one of those jokester thingies pops into my head. Yeah, I don't know what 143 was. Let's look. He was certainly on it. SARS Gone Wild with a Side of Rice. That was August 2024. But what was the one? Just 1109. Yeah, so this one would have been even more recent than 1109. Yeah. Maybe he came up with the title. Yeah. I like Dixon's description of the worm in the eye, face orange, biting nails. All right, I'm going to go back now. So Dixon did this thing with his fingers to show how many legs an arthropod had, but I can't do it. But you can find it on one of the podcasts. I actually made a short out of it. Dagfin says, I believe it would be Sick Transit Gloria Dixoni. Okay, just to come out as a grammar Nazi. Appreciate it. Thank you, SRR, for your contribution to science communication. He says, donating through YouTube to raise TWIV in the algorithm. Thank you very much. Appreciated. There were a couple of comments I wanted to light on here. Let's see. Sorry, I'm taking a while to find the few questions that were interspersed that I wanted to get back to. But of course, I have no way of knowing how to get back to them. By the way, Elena, if you want this microscope, Vincent at microbe.tv, send me your address, and this time I'll get it done. Okay? I promise. I have an assistant who can pack it up. Here we go. On TWIV 1189, you discussed a study on yellow fever vaccine. Have you changed your mind? My mantra: vaccines don't prevent infections; they prevent diseases too. They sometimes prevent infections. So that was a weird example where they did a human challenge study, right? And they had two yellow fever vaccine-derived vaccines. So they had the yellow fever vaccine, and then they had a version of it where they put the Japanese encephalitis virus structural proteins substituting for the yellow fever. So basically, you take the yellow fever vaccine and you make a Japanese encephalitis virus vaccine. All right. So if I remember correctly, the Japanese. So what they would do is they would vaccinate people, then wait, and then challenge them with the vaccine, the same vaccine or the other vaccine, right? And so immunization with JEV didn't prevent any replication or disease with either vaccine. But the yellow fever vaccine was very good. And in a couple of people, they didn't get any PCR positivity. So it looked like it was preventing infection. But, it's a small number. There could be technical problems. So, no, I'm not changing it yet based on that. I think that was a small experimental study. It needs to be re-examined in a bigger way. It just could be that they missed it, right? Yeah, it's good. That's what I wanted to do. That one, yep. So the whole vertical farm thing was interesting. He lost his funding because he used to work on trichinella, right? And he said, "Well, what am I going to do?" He said, "Well, I'm going to teach medical ecology." And so he started teaching that, and it was very popular. And it morphed into regular ecology. And one year, he said to the class, "How much food could we grow on the rooftops of New York City?" And it turned out to be amazingly little. So then he said, "Well, why don't we convert the skyscrapers into vertical farms?" And that got him into the whole vertical farm shtick. Yeah, right. Hmm. I'm looking for some other. Okay. Yeah, Carol says, "I'm so nervous about RFK Jr.'s likely confirmation. Public health will definitely decline if he is continued." So, confirmed. So, a couple of things about that. First of all, one of the few Republicans who could vote against him was Susan Collins. She called him and said, "Can you tell me that you're not going to cut the NIH budget?" He said, "I'll look into it." She said, "Okay, you have my vote." Do you know what did she call Brett? What did she say to Brett Kavanaugh? "Are you going to vote to overturn Roe v. Wade?" And he said, "No, I will not do that." And what he did it. So twice she was duped. What the hell is she listening to these politicians for? Unbelievable. And then the other person, of course, who was involved is Cassidy, right? Who is a physician and really should know better, and who's been talking to Paul Offit for weeks now about this, pulling out papers and saying, "What about this? What about that?" And in the end, he votes for confirmation. You know why? Well, in my view, he just wants to get reelected. Otherwise, he won't be. How can a physician vote yes for a guy who lies about the science? I don't get it. I just don't get it. Yes, Patricia says the same thing. She's going to vote to confirm, and yeah, it's terrible. Terrible. Portia, hi, Vincent. Sorry to lose Dixon. I feel like I lost a friend. Did Dixon ever share with you what sparked his interest in parasites or virology or urban planning? I've interviewed him. I'll have to find the interview. But basically, he went to Notre Dame and got involved in germ-free mice and trichinella, I believe. And that really started. Sometimes you go to a lab and you work on a project and you get into it. Got him interested in virology. He was hanging out with me. And the urban planning, I just told you, he started teaching the ecology course. Okay, so Angry Penguin has this question, and Michael Schmidt said, okay, could you please explain how phages turn friendly strep pathogenic? And Michael says the phages likely brought in virulence determinants through a likely specialized transduction mechanism. Yeah. Anyway, as you all know, things have been happening with science here in the U.S. It's just horrible. And the NIH funding is uncertain. He wanted to cut it substantially. He wanted to cut the indirect costs to 15%. But this is Congress mandated funding. He just can't turn it off without congressional approval. But this is the crap that he does all the time. And then you get in a legal battle and it's a mess. So if NIH funding is cut, this is a big problem. U.S. science is great. And because of this stupid 2025 plan, whatever, they say NIH is corrupt without providing any evidence. They just put a big 500-page frickin' volume there and they say NIH is corrupt and people believe it because they're so goddamn gullible because you don't think on your own. You don't read. And it really pisses me off because American science is great and you're going to screw it up for no good reason. Now, people depend on getting grants to keep their labs going, to pay people. It's a complicated process. You just can't turn it off. It's not fair. The other thing is this business of holding back information. It turns out, then they allow morbidity and mortality weekly report to get published. And there's stuff missing. So now we're going to have censoring of scientific information by the administration, by people who know nothing about science. Zero. I guarantee they know nothing about science. They just have some idea of they want to control stuff. Probably it's, pronouns they want to control. Because what would they know about the science? Why would they censor an H5N1 paper? You don't know anything about it. Idiots. I just despise when people make scientific decisions without knowing any science. So then we have RFK Jr., who will most likely be confirmed, who lied left and right during his confirmation hearings. Left and right. And only the Democrats called him out, right? And he said to Bernie Sanders, oh, you got millions of dollars from pharma. This is a freaking lie. He doesn't get anything from pharma. And they asked him, well, what about this letter from 77 Nobel laureates who say you're unsuited? And he says, instead of answering the question, he says, oh, you have to look at their conflicts of interest. They don't have conflicts of interest related to this. You're just changing the subject. You're lying because you're unsuited for the job. And political pressures have led to him being confirmed. And this is disgusting. He's going to screw up HHS big time. He's going to screw up NIH. He's going to screw up vaccines. He doesn't know anything. All he knows is making money. He's a freaking personal injury protection lawyer. He doesn't care about the science. He promises to be guided by the science. So then what are you saying that vaccines cause autism still when multiple studies have proven that it doesn't? Go by the science. Oh my God, so ignorant. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You have no idea how this bothers me, how much. Okay, but we don't want to sully Dixon's memory. He would like me to get charged up over it, though. Kang, if the bats' high metabolic rates help them fight viral infections, how can they produce enough viruses to be a zoonotic source? Yeah, well, that's a very good question, Kang. But let's clarify something. The high metabolic rates are a consequence of flight, right? And flight burns oxygen and makes oxygen radicals, which can damage tissues. So bat immune systems have evolved to sop up these radicals, right? And as a consequence, they can control viral infections better. Now, I don't know how much you need to start a zoonosis, right? If a bat poops on another animal, maybe 10 PFU is enough. I have no idea, right? And maybe there are bats that get sick. I mean, this whole idea that bats don't get sick from most viruses, I don't buy that. I'm sorry. Did you go in every cave in the frickin' world and look? No. Just extrapolating with no data. So I think there are bats that get sick and they make a lot of virus, and maybe those are part of the picture, right? Right. John, thank you for your contribution to science communication. Really appreciate it. And Costella, thank you for your support of our work here. Gmo wants to know if HSV has multiple strains. Yeah, there are multiple strains. They're called like FCOS, McRae, 17, SC16. They have different abilities to cause disease. Now, the problem is, so some of them cause one thing and some of them cause other things. The thing is, when you get a herpes infection, it goes latent in you, right? And it doesn't provide you with any immunity. So you could always get multiple infections, yes. So, yeah, you could get infected with a different strain and get different symptoms, yeah. What is medical ecology? Let's look it up. Dixon had a web page that I managed for a while on medical ecology. The interactions between human health and the environment. Factors such as air quality, water quality, food safety, climate change, etc., influence the occurrence, distribution, and prevention of disease. There's a Wikipedia page on it. The field was developed by René Dubois, who was at Rockefeller and overlapped with Dixon. And that's how Dixon got to know this field of medical ecology, and that's why he decided to teach it when he was at Columbia. Ari wants to know, anyone thinking of leaving the U.S.? No. I want to stay here and fight. I'm not leaving. It's the easy thing to do. It's a cowardly thing to do. Stay here and fight. Otherwise, we can't endure, right? President Musk said he needed H-1B visas because we are not well educated in the U.S., and he goes ahead to cut education funding. Of course. Of course. Patricia says, New Jersey avian influenza testing, multiple wild birds found dead. Yeah, it's everywhere, right? There's no question about it. You have to be careful with birds. Dagfin. Vincent, get all the scientists out of the U.S. before it's too late. It's going to get a lot uglier than most people think. I think it can't. There have to be enough people who want to defend science here in the U.S. that they'll find ways to prevent it from being destroyed. Why would you want to destroy it? Well, if you want to make a dictatorship where you control everything, there you go. Jeff says Trump's cuts are unconstitutional. Article 2, Section 2 explicitly states that the executive's only authority as he may require the opinion writing of the principal officer of each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices. Okay. Yes, it is unconstitutional. So it makes you think whether, if it goes to the Supreme Court, are they going to just throw all law out the window? I mean, that's disgusting. They've already said, John Roberts has already said, we can't just throw all the laws out in this country. That's not how it works. So that's promising. Will says the Orange regime, Orange 2 is an extension of 1, where he wanted to stop testing to pretend that COVID had gone away. Yeah, he didn't get away with it, right? So there were some forces that could stop him. I'm sure Uruguay is wonderful, but I don't want to leave because I want to stay here, do my microbe TV thing, and teach people as much science as possible. Yeah, RFK Jr. doesn't know how to read a study. This is the scary thing. He waives these studies. He waived one study, which was not even a study. It was a crappy. It wasn't even published in a scientific journal. It was published in some blog, peer-reviewed by some anti-vax person, claiming that kids got autism from some vaccine. It was just garbage, uncontrolled garbage, and he's waiving it. And you know what? He didn't read it. Someone handed it to him and said, here's a paper that says vaccines cause autism. Unbelievable. The cap on the overhead has been paused. Yeah, I hope it sticks, right? I do hope it sticks. Privyet. Hello, Veronica. I also want to express my condolences. I adore Dixon, his immense knowledge, silly jokes, tangents, his excitement about life. He's an inspiration to always keep learning. Thank you, Veronica. Elizabeth says Dixon will be yelling right along with you. Dan, condolences for Dixon. Let's preserve his energy somehow and try to be positive. Dixon seemed like a true gentleman. Yes, he was. He was a very kind man. Yeah. Hello, Miliana. Welcome. My condolences for Dixon. Yeah, Andrew says, I bet sick bats behave differently, resulting in less sampling. I agree. There are all kinds of issues with this, saying bats don't get sick. Yeah. You know, it was partially based on lab experiments where you take a bat and you infect it with Ebola virus and it doesn't get sick. Okay, that's one virus. There are lots of other viruses out there. Maybe others make bats sick. Thank you, CD, for your contribution to science communication. R.A.P. Dixon, there are not enough words. You are appreciated. Thank you so much. Parker says, if you could name a virus, what would you call it? Yeah, Vincent virus. I don't know. I've never thought about that. I mean, you'd call it, if you want to be serious, just call it, that gives you some information about the disease, right? But if you want to be fun, yeah, you call it the Vinny virus. I will ask another time because it's towards the end of the hour. No, we go to 10. It's okay. What AI gets flung around for all kinds of research. How are you seeing it used well and poorly? So it's used well for analyzing big data sets. So if you have lots of genome sequences of anything, bats, viruses, people, you can teach the AI to look for something and let it go on all those data. And that's really good. It does a really good job for that. We did a paper on TWIV recently where they fed into the AI, because you have to give them some information, right? Machine learning, structures of RNA polymerases. And they said, look for these structures in these amino acid sequences. I don't want you to look for the amino acids. I want you to look for the structures. And it pulled out some new polymerases from new viruses. So I think that's good when it's used that way. I mean, that's computational biology. How is it used poorly? People try to use it to write. It's no good. Write your own stuff. Don't depend on people say, oh, I make a draft. Oh, write it yourself. You're going to lose your writing skills. Why would you do that? It's not nice. But, in the experimental arena, I don't see too much misuse of it, but I may not be looking at all the studies. But I just think in the non-experimental arena, it's a problem. And, students are enamored of it. And I think it's fine to use new tools, but you need to understand their limitations and what underpins them. Why is the flu so bad this year? Is it? Well, according to today, yes, it's a bad flu season. Daniel hasn't really. I mean, there's a lot of cases, right? There's a lot of activity if you look at the maps. I don't. So a lot of people have flu, but that doesn't tell me that it's more serious than other seasons. There may be a lot more cases than other seasons. So the CDC does a severity. This is a moderately severe flu season, but it is really early. It could get worse. So why would it be moderately severe one year and mild another year and really severe another year? So the flu strains can change. So right now we have a couple of different strains circulating, including H3N2 and H1N1. When the H3N2 predominates, it tends to be more virulent. It's a more virulent virus than H1N1. And why? And they kind of switch off being dominant, so you get 1 year virulent and another year less so. So the virus can change, but it can also be population immunity. I remember coming off a pandemic, people were sheltered for a long time, so they don't have the immunity that they're used to, and that can play a role in it as well. Hello, Charlotte. Yeah, you haven't been here in a while. Dixon was 85. I don't want to talk about his illness. That's private, right? But it was unexpected and relatively fast. He went down in a couple of months. Vertical farms, in theory, do not have pathogens because you have strict control procedures. So, you have to change your shoes and wash your hands when you come in. So we went to visit the vertical farm on the roof of the Whole Foods in Brooklyn. That was the last urban agriculture episode. And we interviewed the CEO. Dixon interviewed the CEO, actually. And so what am I saying? There was control over getting in. And some places are more conscientious than others. Okay, let's put it that way. You have to take some care and putting on the right garb when you go into work and so forth, so you don't bring in street microbes. Yeah. I read Nevada has a D1.1 case and a worker on a dairy farm. Is it a concern? Sure, because it could spread, it could change. Nobody knows what it's going to do. And the fact that it's there is a concern, but it doesn't mean it's the beginning of anything. We just have to keep monitoring. I don't know. I mean, if it infects this person who's working with cows and they don't spread it to anyone else, then it's not a concern unless it changes. And who knows if it's going to change. What is a concern is that it's infecting so many animals now than over a couple of years ago. That's concerning. I don't know what to do about that. There's not much we can do. Area Ozone, what suggestions do you have for us as a community to fight? All right. So, what I can do? I can do all these programs and explain science and so forth. What you can do is you could get cues from us and keep writing your senators and representatives, and if they give local talks, you should go and challenge them. If they say vaccines cause autism and we're going to save you, you should get up and say, no, they don't. There's no evidence that they do. And it takes guts to do that. Donate to candidates that are going to push the right agenda. Get involved with committees, committees that are fighting and trying to get the right word out there. I mean, those are things that I would think of. I don't know because I don't do that. What I do is teach, right? You could teach too. If you absorbed enough from microbe TV, you could go somewhere and say, hey, vaccines don't cause autism. They're fine. So this is very interesting because of white Christian nationalism. They want to destroy it. It's funny because, you know what? Christianity and any religion is about being kind. And what they're doing is not about being kind. It's just a lot of BS. This is put words on there. Yeah, we've got to get all Christian. No, if you were going to be kind, you wouldn't do that at all. Angry Penguin, the latest Beyond the Noise, RFK's playbook. Well done. Thank you. Well, that's Paul Offit's writing. I just put it in video. Tom says, could bats simply be asymptomatic? Yes, absolutely. And that's my point. Unless you've sampled lots of bats and people haven't, you just don't know. So be careful about making such conclusions. So Litzai has a suggestion for Area Ozone. Remain generous, retain a sense of social responsibility, and teach. Those are some ways to do it too. Tona says, Paul Offit is a role model on defending science and speaking out. For sure. We're very lucky that Paul lets Microbe TV spread his word, right? I think it's great. And he's going to do it. He's going to keep doing it. Yes, I agree. Vertical farms would be more biosecure, but they're not 100%. I mean, I've seen vertical farms where, the windows are open and insects can fly in and stuff like that. So they're not perfect. It depends on the vertical farm. You can have a lot of biosecurity and not so much, as I said before. A. Caulfield, sad to hear about Dixon. I will miss him. Patricia says, at the start of the pandemic, I thought viral load would make a difference. You said no. Oh, I don't know of any evidence that addresses it one way or another. The one challenge study was done. They gave people a fixed dose. So what do you mean make a difference? So if you have very low inocula, they're more likely to get cleared by the innate immune system, right? And as you get higher and higher in the inoculum, it becomes harder and harder. People with great innate systems will still be able to clear infections, but then there are going to be people that have poor interferon responses with increasing inocula may have trouble clearing it. So in terms of establishing the infection, the viral load could make a difference. But in terms of disease, I don't see how it would make a difference. No, I've seen no data to suggest that. Stacy, I'm not sure why people believe in the lab leak. I've never seen direct evidence. Do they know something I don't know? No, you've just said the brilliant thing. There's no direct evidence. They don't know something you don't know. There's plenty of direct evidence for a natural origin. It's a purely political situation. A couple of scientists are skeptics, right? But they're not going to say it came from a lab. They'll say, I'm not sure yet. But the vast majority. So this is BS. And it's being used now by the current administration. You know, the CIA changed they had done an investigation. They said, we can't really conclude that it came from a lab. There's no evidence that they were working on anything. And now suddenly it's changed to, it came from a lab. Because it's political. That's all. That's all it is, and it's disgusting. And, I just keep saying it, and people say, oh, but there's this and that. No, there's not this and that. There's nothing. Zero. Saying you're doing gain of function means nothing. It doesn't prove anything. You try doing that in a court of law. Oh, my God, you get laughed out. So thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that comment. Environmental says, I'm working on making sure the fracking ban does not get overturned. The fracking ban does not get overturned in New York. Up here in Marcellus Shale, they are chomping at the bit to ruin our farmland and well water. Absolutely. Yes. Good luck with that. If Dixon were here, I'm sure he would feel touched by all your kind words and say some adage like funerals and tributes are for the living, not the deceased. It's true. He would say that. Absolutely. Environment. I'm infiltrating the Republican Party here. No one knows it. Good luck. Good luck with that. Dixon would love what you're doing, I'm sure. Mark Martin, have you talked about this influenza A going around? It knocked me down for a week. All right, Mark, what happens to you doesn't really mean a lot for the whole population, you know? Yeah, you got knocked down, but maybe you have issues that got you knocked down. And I'm not sure having the old man vaccine is really the key. I think it's possible that this is a more virulent strain, but we don't know. No experiments have been done to address it. I guess the point is your experience does not lead to conclusions, right? It's an N equals 1. You know that. You're a scientist. Dan, thank you so much for your contribution to science communication. Everything donated tonight is in memory of Dixon Despommier. Spamlet, so sorry to hear about Dixon. Such a character and such stories. It seemed he would be with us always. Love and condolences. Yeah. he seemed, yeah, Seemed like he'd be around forever. Yeah, people you work with do, right? Environmental says, I know absolutely no one where I live who would be watching this show. Yeah, that's part of the problem, right? We don't have very much penetration. I'm sorry, I'm sniffling. Hold on. Let me get a tissue. I don't have a cold. There are other reasons why I sniffle. You just have to take my word for it. Yeah, I don't know how we fix that. Do we go on the road and do shows in remote locations where we have to do something different? We can't just drone on about science. That's where Dixon would be great. He and I, maybe Daniel, get up there and chat. I don't know. About naming viruses, Mark says the folks at Phages had to finally overrule Sturden's naming their phages after Nicolas Cage. Why would you want to name your phage after Nicolas Cage? Name it after something more interesting. Like what, Vincent says. Yeah, the Vinny virus. I always liked the Vinny virus. But don't you have to name it after a famous person. They're already famous. Figure something out. Go into another field and take a name. Like here. Here's this book about dinosaurs, right? The Complete Dinosaur. So you open it up. Sauropod. You could use the sauropod. You could use Plateosaurus. Triassic. You could pick any of these names. Paleo, the paleophage. And then people think it's about a diet. Just open other sources and look. Truman, thank you for your support of science communication. Yeah, so Tom, bats can be sick, and we don't know it, or they could be asymptomatically infected. Sure, no problem. Also for protein analysis, AI, there was a good paper where they found, novel RNA polymerases. That's the one I was just mentioning, where they taught the AI, they taught the AI the structure of the active site of an RNA polymerase, and it pulled out new ones. We did that paper on TWIV, yeah. 8440K, thank you for your support of science communication. Hello from Malvern, PA. I'm extremely saddened with the passing of Dixon Despommier. The world lost an incredible intellectual and a scholar. My sincere condolences to everyone close to him. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ubalubi, would Vinny virus be encapsulated icosahedrally? Yeah, he would. It would be. Yeah, I like icosahedral capsids. Yeah, no membranes. Membranes make you fragile. Oh, this is very interesting. Vaccinologist Maurice Hilleman saved millions of children. Asked about when anti-vaxxers would stop, he started to cry and said it won't stop until children were hospitalized and dying again. That's right. You can read that in Paul Offit's book, Vaccinated. This is all about Maurice Hilleman. And that quote is in here. And Paul said, it's going to take outbreaks of many infectious diseases for people to realize how they screwed up. But they don't care. They're interested in money. They see they can make money on being anti-vaccine. And this just drives them. They want millions of dollars. That's what the main source of RFK's income are, these litigation cases that he's consulting with. on vaccines. Do you want to give away a couple million a year? I would never, ever take a penny from that crap. It's just, what's the word? This is not right. It isn't right. It's not the right thing to do. Rach, yes, you do have to fight, but the world needs scientists' input. If American scientists are silenced, I'm scared the world will lose so much. Keep doing what you do. Yeah, you think they're going to silence me? I'm too small at this point to be silenced. Now, MSNBC, that's who they want to silence, right? I didn't even know how you could silence it at MSNBC, but I'm sure it could be done. So you really think American scientists are going to be silenced? Well, if you don't give them money to do research, they're going to be silenced, yeah. But there's no other infrastructure that could support American science, except maybe China. They have enough money. They're not going to take American scientists. So they have to stay here and fight, write letters, protest. I have to tell you something. You know, this indirect cost business. You get a grant for $100,000 from NIH, goes to your university, and they pay your bills and your salaries. Okay, it doesn't go to you, it goes to your university. The university takes care of the grant management. They also give a little money to the university to pay their bills, the lights, the water, action, toilet paper. It's called indirect costs. Every university negotiates their own indirect cost rate. It could be 60, 70%. It could be even higher. Depends. So that is a windfall for universities. It always has been since the 50s when NIH began supporting medical research. I have said for years, universities need to figure out how to pay this because it's going to dry up one day. Figure it out. Be creative. Raise at least some of the indirect costs. But no, it's pigs at the trough. You give them pots of money, yeah, I'll take it. And I'm not going to make any effort to find an alternative. I've been saying this for years, but it's too easy to just negotiate a 70% indirect rate and sit back and take your money. This is why universities like to build buildings, because they fill them with researchers who get grants that pays their salary and it pays for the building. And I'm sorry, this isn't right. I'm not saying you should cut it off overnight to 15%, but you know, the universities, you've had many years to figure it out. And they say, oh no, we can't come up with this money. BS, you could figure it out. You're smart. So now, hopefully it doesn't happen, right? Because maybe the president doesn't have the ability to cut off these monies. But it's been in the cards for years. So really, you can't complain, folks. The Virivirus might be a fun one to catch. What are you going to use to catch a Virivirus? Pasta. Oh, yes. Markle, one suggestion is the 5 Calls app. It helps you make calls about the issues to your representatives at their Washington offices. Nika says, as far as I know, people use AI to create fake scientific articles. Really, it just sucks. It just sucks. If you can't write an article, just get out of the field. You can't compete. Oh, my God. So they make up the data, too? Oh, my gosh. Guess I shouldn't be surprised. Angry Penguin says, don't know how tariffs will impact vaccines. Where I used to work, different vaccines for the same global company are made, the Canadian and U.S. sites. Yeah, depending on the license and the local expertise. It's a good question. Well, some are made in Canada that are used in the U.S., and there's no tariffs anymore, right? Canada and Mexico, no more tariffs. I don't believe we use any vaccine from China, so maybe it's not an issue. Ariozone has the app and makes calls daily. That's good. Everyone should get this app and make calls every day. You doubt that you have a voice. Yeah, but you can't not speak up because you don't think you have a voice. Everyone needs to talk, and eventually this big volume will make a difference. We now have COVID flu tests in one test. That's right. Mark Martin showed me his. You got COVID and you got flu A and flu B. Not free. No. Can't order them from the government. Nope, not in this administration is the government going to help you out at all. No kindness. Nope. The extra money has to go to the billionaires so they can be more billionaires. What scares me is that these days anti-vaxxers blame illnesses on toxins and stuff like that, which means it'll be very difficult to convince them kids need vaccines and not juice cleanses. It's part of the problem. But again, it's all about money. The anti-vaxxers can make money. They can get involved in litigation. They can sell alternative products. Yeah. Weasel Box, I love that place. I guess you're talking about the Whole Foods, the greenhouse on top of Whole Foods. Well, you can make a crop every 21 days, right? Leafy greens. And the security depends on who owns and runs the farm. I grew sprouts and microgreens for 3 years. Yeah. So Gotham Green, is that it? I think it's Gotham Green. You can buy them in your grocery stores. They're really nice. Can you discuss the adjuvants that are regularly being used? So let's talk about the mRNA COVID vaccines. They don't add an adjuvant, but the lipids are probably acting like an adjuvant in part, but it's not technically an adjuvant. For flu, I don't know if there's any adjuvants in the U.S. There's certainly adjuvanted flu vaccines. Yeah, there are in the U.S. Fluad is one of 3 flu vaccines. It contains an adjuvant. What are these adjuvants? Well, the Fluad, which is in this flu vaccine, contains a non-aluminum adjuvant called MF59. It is a oil in water emulsion of squalene oil. Squalene is a naturally occurring substance, and it's added to the vaccine. You get a better immune response, and in part, it's because it's stimulating early innate responses, which help to get you a better adaptive response. But the mRNA vaccines don't have anything else added to them. Some vaccines have aluminum adjuvants. Same thing. They stimulate an immune response. And they haven't changed much over the year. MF59 and aluminum adjuvants have pretty much remained the same. And many anti-vaxxers claim that aluminum is toxic. No, it is not toxic in the amounts used. It's been safely used for years. It's just an excuse to buy my product. Linda writes, I'm glad to have your many twivs on video to rewatch Dixon. Oh, you're welcome. Angry Penguin, if things get bad in the U.S., come to Canada. We still have cheap bags. Well, I'm no longer a working scientist. I don't have a lab. I talk about science. I teach. So I don't need to leave. I can stay here and do my thing. Whether other people leave or not is up to them. but it's hard to leave. People have families, and you can't just pick everybody up and leave. Yeah. This is the other thing. Go to town halls. Yep, that's what I was thinking too. And vote at all elections. Okay, Frank wants to know what's the difference between flu A and flu B. So they're both influenza viruses. they they're the immune response against one does not protect you against the other. That's what distinguishes them as flu A and B. So if you get infected with flu A, you make antibodies and T cells against flu A. They will protect you from a subsequent flu A infection, but they will not protect you against flu B. And that is why we have flu A and flu B strains in the vaccine. So they both look like influenza viruses. The one main difference is that, for flu A, there's what we call antigenic variation, right? The hemagglutinin and the neuraminidase proteins can change on a year-to-year basis, and that can make the vaccine not protective. Flu B doesn't do that. Doesn't seem to be any antigenic drift that foils the efficacy of the vaccines. So that's the main difference between flu A and flu B. Cheap eggs. What are eggs costing these days? Does anybody know? I have no idea. I have an incubator. I haven't eaten an egg in a long time. I just didn't feel like it. No reason. Hello, Sharon from. Why does this thing jump around? Tasmania. We have lost Dixon. Oh, what a huge library of knowledge and experience we've lost. Last live, he appeared more vulnerable and wandered a little in his answer. Dagfin wrote to Bernie Sanders to oppose RFK. It's cool. And he wrote back a friendly letter. Sanders has a good office, yeah. Thanks for all the information, mister. Been enjoying your channel for the past 3 months. Thank you. Harlan, thank you so much. It went away. Here we go. Harlan, thank you for your contribution to science communication. Dixon Despommier inspired me to learn more about the unseen world of parasites, and Vincent artfully prompted their informative discussions and made them available to us. Thanks, Racaniello, for sharing your friend with us. I'm sorry about your loss. I always viewed myself as a facilitator, right? Dixon and the others had this nice information to share, particularly Dixon, really a whole treasure trove of information accumulated over a long career. And I wanted to get him on podcasts. That was my goal, and he never disappointed. Yeah, I made some mistakes sometimes, but that's fine. But he was really, I wanted him to be the centerpiece, and he wasn't always there. But when he was there, he was great. I really enjoyed him. So, yeah, I wanted to showcase others. Yo, YOH, I want to send my condolences. Thank you for sharing such a good friend as Dixon with us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Daniel says, my partner and I, thank you for your contribution, Daniel. My partner and I really enjoy listening to Dixon and the TWIV co-hosts. We're sorry, Vincent, and we hope you find solace in warm memories of him. You did great, incredible work together. Thank you so much. I'm glad you find that so. There are some episodes of TWIV where it was just me and Dixon. TWIV, usually there are other people. And as I said, there are a couple of interviews, maybe one after his last book, which I should really make a playlist of. Yeah. Dorothy says, no, Dixon was so smart. His memory was so sharp, I'm going to go back and listen to his voice again and learn more from him. He made me feel comfortable, and he was so understandable. That's very kind of you, Dorothy. Thank you so much. Tona wants to mail a check to the incubator. I mail it. Microbe TV, 352 7th Avenue, Suite 703, New York, New York, 10001. You can go to microbe.tv/contribute, and you'll find the address there as well. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Will says, Cassidy ignoring science. Doesn't that give you cause to trust a medic who votes GOP? Well, this guy's doing it to keep his job, right? Flat out. He's not going to get elected if he votes against it. Although that might be worth the sacrifice, because to keep RFK out would be huge. But he didn't want to have the guts to do that. No. Kang says there's a story about Adlai Stevenson at a campaign stop. Had a college co-ed shout out, "You have the vote of all thinking Americans." Stevenson replied, "That is not enough to get him elected." Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It may be true, right? So what do we have? 245 listeners. That's pretty good. Everybody coming to say goodbye to Dixon. Thank you so much. And 163 likes. So please hit the like button. It just signifies to other people that we're here. Maybe they'll come see. Sharon writes, we used to practice social and common courtesies between each other. That's been replaced with ignorance and impatience. Absolutely. This is the party of nastiness. Mm-hmm. Andrew writes, it is the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay, small acts of kindness and love. One hopes. What am I drinking? No, this is ginger ale. You know, ginger ale is good for a little nausea. Otherwise, I wouldn't be drinking soda. No alcohol during a stream. Truman just bought a Vertical Farm mug from the Twiv shop in honor of Dr. Dixon. Thank you very much for that. Enjoy it. John writes, I always wait for clinical update to cover news on influenza, but I read the new D1.1 was conjunctivitis. So that tells me that it's not binding to the alpha-2/6 receptors, which humans have. The alpha-2/3s are in the eye and deep in the lungs. So unless the virus changes, it's not going to go very far. Portia, thank you for your contribution to science communication and to Dixon Despommier. Appreciate it. Okay, everybody likes the Nicholas Phage name. Okay, that's fine. Sizzle it up with Sarah. Shit, this isn't how I find out Dixon is no longer with us. I'm sorry for your loss. Yes, here it is. Yeah. Portia wants to know what's going on with Angela's plan to do a podcast. That was a kind of science of exercise and sport. Well, for now, it's on a back burner. So, Angela's a graduate student. She doesn't have a lot of time to do a podcast. She already does Twiv once a month. So she said, I got to back out of this for now. and I respect that. But hopefully in the future she can do it. Okay, here we go. Weasel. Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry about your friend. Thank you very much. Can you repeat the super spreader fact? Something like 20% of those with COVID are spreading it to 80% of people who catch it. Now, I think 20% is right. Let's check it up. Yeah, it's correct. 20% of people, infected people, are causing 80% of infections. Yeah. Yep. 20%. That's the 20/80 rule. 20% of the population causes 80% of the infections. There you go. Yes. Okay, Yo wants to know, do two flu variants compete with one another when they spread at the same time through a population? Or do they not affect the epidemic behavior? Yeah, they do compete with one another. I mean, that's how one variant will become dominant, right? It's the same thing with SARS-CoV-2 variant. One emerges and it outcompetes the other. In a population, it just does better in the population. For flu, same thing happens, and we understand that the variant escapes antibodies. Therefore, it can reproduce in hosts that have antibodies, and the other strain that it's competing with can't, so the other one goes away. And so this one displaces it. So yeah, they do compete with each other. Miter 1 says we will be losing our ability to develop new vaccines and antiviral medications, stop developing new treatment for other diseases like cancer, Parkinson's, MS, even worse, lost opportunity to work. So many, yes, I'm particularly worried about H5N1, that research that we need to do isn't going to be done, especially if you cut the money like is being contemplated, and we need to work on it. So this is all stupid. It's really ignorant to fulfill some political goal of decentralizing the government. What the hell else are you going to have research in the U.S.? It doesn't work that. You got to have the NIH, and you have to fund them and let them fund labs to do research. You don't know what you're doing. Spoken from someone who was NIH funded for many years and did research and understands the system. You don't understand the system, folks. I remember some of the TWIV gang did a show from a local museum. So there are two that I can think of. One was the outbreak exhibit at the Smithsonian in Washington. And so I think that was just me and some of the people who had put the exhibit together. And then the other one, the really local museum, was TWIVO, which we did at a science museum in Johnson City, Texas, which is a great local museum, but Dixon wasn't there, no. It would have been fun if he had been at some of these. Let's see, what kind of shows did Dixon come? I think the one in Hamilton, Montana was a lot of fun. It was him, me, and Diane Griffin. It was fun. Cage Phage. You like the name Cage Phage? Yeah, but you can't name it over and over unless you give them numbers, right? It's okay. It's okay. Or Nicholas Phage. Nicholas Phage is a fantastic name, actually. Not bad. Ohio would like to know if you will be coming back to Ohio State. I have not been invited. Last year, ASV was at Ohio, in Columbus, right? And I came for something else last year. Yeah, some kind of infectious disease conference. I haven't been invited. I mean, if I'm invited, I will do my best to come. Raising Arizona phage. I don't know why that goes, John. Raising Arizona is great. Raising Arizona phage. Okay. Could you repost the Dixon TWIP episodes where you went through each parasite with Dixon's stories, making them all special? Hooked as a child on finding Pelican books, Parasites and Man. Yeah. Sure, I can do that. Are there dodecahedral capsids? Well, yeah, it's basically a solid with 12 faces. It's like an icosahedron, right? So they're technically dodecahedrons, but I call them icosahedrons. The Vinivirus could be the first. No, we have lots of dodecahedral viruses, but we can um, we can come up with some other symmetry and make a Vinivirus built with it, right? Kang says, is there a downside to having a deadly pathogen named after you? I don't think so. I'm not superstitious at all, right? So for example, in the 90s, there was an outbreak of severe pulmonary respiratory infections in the Four Corners region, right, where those 4 states come together. And they isolated the virus, and they named it after the little town where they got it, Muerto Canyon virus. And this was a very virulent virus, killed many of its victims. And the residents of Muerto Canyon said, nope, you're not naming it after us, to the CDC. They came up with some other local names, and they all rejected them. So CDC called the virus Sin Nombre virus, in a little bit of humor, sense of humor expressed by the CDC. No name virus. Because, okay, you guys don't want us to call this virus anything. Because they didn't want a serious virus associated with their town. Maybe they were superstitious. It's their right. But now the trend is not to name viruses after locales. There are exceptions, right? Ebola virus is named after the Ebola virus, the Ebola River, but that is in 1976, so it's a long time ago. Coxsackie virus, named after Coxsackie, New York. So there was a time where people didn't worry about it, and now, like everything else, it's changed. Okay. Jana, where is it? Thank you so much. Oh, it went away. Sorry. Let me get it again. Jana, thank you so much for your support of science communication. Really appreciate it. You think Vinivirus is too funny? I don't know. I just made it up. It's okay. But it goes, right? 2 V's, alliteration. Oh, no, it's not an alliteration, right? Here's a joke from Questella. I thought we were going to conquer Canada and make it the 51st state. Then weren't. We're going to conquer Greenland and call it Red, White, and Blue Land. That's good. Very good. Yeah. My comments window is very wonky. It jumps up and down. So as I'm scrolling to look for a question, it just jumps up and down. Tryon wants to know, did many viruses catch a lipid part of the membrane when released from the infected cells, can that induce cross-reacting antibody? Well, yeah, there are many envelope viruses that grab their membrane from the plasma membrane, right? Can it induce cross-reacting antibody? Not. Oh, I see. Because you're thinking of proteins, cell proteins that are getting incorporated into the virus particle, right? No, I'm not aware of any example of that. I think the number of cell membrane proteins that get incorporated into the virus particles are low. I wonder if how much money universities could save if science journals were disbanded and research made free access, as it should always have been. Well, yeah, libraries pay enormous amounts of money for subscriptions, especially to Elsevier, one of the biggest journal publisher in the world, scientific journal. Huge company, makes billions of dollars of profit. Disgusting. And the subscription rates are horrible. Yeah, it should all be open access. I agree. How do you pay for it? Go figure it out. Be creative. Why do I have to solve your problems for you? The problem is that at the same time, the public universities have had their state funding crippled, so they're turned to grant. They can't charge students money they don't have. Okay, raise some money, get some donors, be creative. There's got to be a way. You see what's happening now. Your handout, your indirect costs may disappear. Yeah, I mean, Liz says endowments to pay for indirects. I bet they can be creative. Sure. You're saying, oh, no, we don't have this or that. Don't you got a lot of people who are talented. You could do it. I'm sorry, Aries, ozone. I just kept chatting and answering questions and talking about Dixon. We'll do it next week. Sorry about that. You can have your money back if you'd like. Artemis says apparently Canadian aluminum will have tariffs, and don't some vaccines have aluminum in them? Yeah, it's true. But you can get aluminum from other places too, right? Not just Canada. This is just stupid. You know, the guy, the head of what, says he hasn't washed his hands in 10 years? Jeez, my gosh. My God. Yay, let's throw out all vaccines and just drink reagent-grade methylene blue. Right. Right. Peter says, when I was considering grant study, I thought the grant included all of the indirects as part of the research, similar to a business plan. Separate indirects is crazy. Well, it's part of the same budget. So you get a total with indirects and directs. Yeah. Just to itemize them. Yeah. Do we have any immune cells that detect foreign RNA or DNA? Yeah, there are phagocytic cells that can, macrophages and dendritic cells, but also most regular cells have sensors for RNA or DNA. So if foreign RNA or DNA gets into the cell, it can be sensed, and the cell will make an innate immune response. Yeah. Yeah, saponins are also an adjuvant in some vaccines, but we don't use a lot of adjuvants in. QS21 derived from the soap bark tree. H2 wants to know, is Marburg virus of concern? Yeah, because it's killing people in Africa. It's a concern for them, right? there's no vaccine, whereas for one Ebola Zaire strain, we have a vaccine. But recently there's a Sudan Ebola strain outbreak, and there's no vaccine. This is in Africa. And Marburg causes hemorrhagic fever, serious, high mortality rate. So it's not going to spread globally, but locally there are always outbreaks in Africa, and it kills people. So it's a concern that we should have a vaccine. And this is the job of the U.S. We should be developing vaccines for countries who can't develop them. All right. What? I just paid $800 for a dozen eggs? 800 what? Can't be dollars. No way. $7.99 in Wisconsin. Why do you even need eggs? You don't need them. Some people like to eat them. These are pretty cheap. They're pretty cheap prices. Nursharja wants to know, is the mRNA vaccine the best invented so far? No, I would say it's not the best, but it's really good. And in an emergency, it saved many, many lives. All right. It was developed in a year and tested and gotten into people, and that's what we needed. So I think that was really important. But not, I don't think it's the best. What would make it the best? A few side effects, and very high protection. So Shingrix, which is a vaccine against zoster, is almost 100% protective against disease, although it has nasty side effects. Your arm gets really sore and so forth. So if you consider side effects, then you wouldn't want that one. Andrew says, don't keep eggs in the incubator. They would hatch and make a mess. Yes, indeed. So when I was a graduate student, I worked on influenza. We used to grow influenza virus in eggs, embryonated chicken eggs. And sometimes you'd have extra eggs that you wouldn't use, and you'd leave them in the incubator. They would hatch, and we would have little chicks running around all the time. Yeah, and unfortunately, you had to sack them. But they're so cute. Very cute. I've forgotten about that. Yes, Wayne, Dixon's gone. Sorry to tell you that. Yes, I had a warm sit-down interview with Dixon at the incubator some time ago. Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you, Miter, for your contribution to science communication. I'm just going to run through here, and I'm not a big fan of peppermint. I have it at the incubator. I don't really like it, unfortunately. I don't like the taste. So I don't drink ginger ale all day. It's just when I'm home and if I feel a little weird. I'm actually okay now. I thank you, H. Zoo, for your contribution. We stand by you. Fight for science and truths. Thank you so much. That's really cool. Wow. Cynthia says in TWIV 815, October 2021, Kathy Spindler's pick was Dixon's artwork. And Dixon talked about learning to paint. Great episode. I have quite a bit of Dixon's artwork at the incubator in here in my home. He gave it to me. His wonderful watercolors. Maybe I'll take some pictures of them and show you next time. Let's see. Any more contributions to acknowledge? I know there are a lot of questions. Oh my gosh, so many. It's great. And I didn't even need to do a mini lecture. Great questions. Please bring them back next week. I want to answer many of them. Oh my gosh. Here, look at this one. This is great. Let me just pop this one. G. Caldwell says, will you be able to continue teaching and spreading accurate information in this new environment? Where will you get your information and updates from? That is a great question. Maybe CDC will be censored, but there are other sources of information in other countries as well. But for the U.S., it's going to be hard. But we're going to have to develop new lines of data for sure. I don't know how that's going to work out. All right. I am going to wrap up this podcast. I want to start by thanking our moderators for being here tonight. We have Vanity Nutrition. We had Les. We had Tom Steinberg. We had Frank. Who else? Steph SF. I think that does it. Thank you all so much for moderating. Really appreciate your help at keeping it civilized. And I want to thank everyone for coming. A really good crowd tonight, over 250 people to honor Dixon Despommier. And I will show you his artwork next week. I have a bunch of his watercolors, as I said. And actually, I've took pictures of some other artwork that he showed at exhibitions. I'll show them to you. They're pretty cool. So when's the next one? Wednesday, the 19th of February, office hours. Let's put it on my calendar because it's not there. That's the same day there's a Tweevo live stream. Wednesday, the 19th of February. And I hope to see all of you here then. In the meantime, of course, you should stay safe. It's just a week, but you never know. Be safe. Thanks for coming, everyone. Good night.